Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I audible enough? All right. Good evening, everyone, for coming, creating your own time to be part of this very evening. First of all, we're saying sorry for the inconvenience yesterday. Due to some challenges, we were unable to hold our class for yesterday. And now you are welcome. For those of us that, let's wait for some of them. I can see that we only have two people available now. Let's give small time so that others can join us with the class for today. Though we have just barely 27 minutes because the class is supposed to go for at least 30 minutes, then we'll be done for today. All right, we're still waiting for others. We have three people now available. We're still waiting for others. Let's just wait small. All right, well, let's just continue. Let's just continue. We don't have to wait for everyone. Once again, good evening, everyone, for finding out time to be here. We're saying well done. I hope the class has been adding value to you all. It's a good time and a privilege to be among the facilitator of this very training. And I believe that you are getting value and it will be good also that you have something that you have learned. So in case you have any question based on the video you've watched, that's for the insole, the part one part of the insole you've watched, please, we'll be taking your questions today, but that's after this very session so that we'll have a good flow. And I must say thank you so much for our to our boss, Mr. Victor, for Promote Expo, for finding out time to have this very training. It's actually a privilege to be among the facilitator of this very training. I must say thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity to share in what we can. So for the past few days now, the video has been there and we're able to learn how to create the patterns for the insole and as well mold the shank to the shape that we need in order to make our insole. I want us to look at some key things that is needed in making an insole. What are those basic things we need? What should you consider when making an high heel, especially when making a boot, among other design? We need to look into the mechanism that we'll be adopting or using in order to make that high heel insole. So these are the things that we'll be looking at today. Then subsequently, after the second video, they will now talk more about what will be needed during the production process of the shoe. So what do we need in making a high heel insole? The first thing that we need is to get our patterns, which is what we did on the video. But there is something I didn't mention, which is very, very key and very, very important in making the insole. The first thing you need to consider is the kind of sole you'll be using before you start making your insole. With me here, I have some soles here. If you can see this sole here, this is a high heel sole, but will this sole be okay for the insole we'll be making? What should we consider when making an insole for this very kind of sole? The first thing you look at is the sole is rigid enough. As you can see, it's very, very rigid enough. And because of its rigidity, we have to consider an insole that will be flexible or a simple insole that will stay on it. The point here is this sole here does not need a shank because already the sole is having a shank. So when creating our insole, we need to consider that the shank will not be present in the insole. So we have to make the insole exactly as the sole is. Okay. What I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say here is the insole does not need a shank. So we have to make the insole flexible that will be able to lap on this very one here. Now, come to think about this one as well. This is a wedge sole. We don't need a shank for this wedge sole as well because already the wedge is rigid enough and can withstand the pressure. Okay? These are the things we have to consider. I can see my boss. You're welcome, sir. For what best spoke. We've started the class, you're absent. I will say let's continue from here. You're welcome, sir. All right, sir. So we were only discussing the kind of soles that we'll be using. That's the key things that we need to consider before making our insole. And this one, we started with the soles because the sole have to tell us what exactly we need and what we need to put in place. I have a heel here as well. As you can see, we have different kind of heels here. All these heels will determine how you position your insole and the materials you'll be using in making the insole. Now, let's come back to this very wedge, this heel here. I've said earlier that this one here is having its shank already inside. So making an insole with a shank will be more of creating more rigid material that will not be comfortable for us all. And that's for the wearer. It will be too heavy and too rigid material will cause problem. Okay. This was the insole we were able to make for the shank, for the boots we're working on. The insole here is having the shank as mentioned in the video. We have the shank in it already, which give us, this is the backer board, part of it, the backer board, which was used. The reason why we use this very one here is to make sure that the shank is buried inside. You have to consider this. It's very, very important, okay? You consider the heel you are working on, just as this one, it does not need a heel, while this one here, it needs, is a heel on its own. So that will be resting on, that the insole will be resting on it. You consider what you'll be using to hold this heel again with it. With me, I have different methods that we can use. We have, this is a 4-edged nail that we can use to drive this into the heel. Can you see? That can be driven into it. And the purpose is to hold the shank, that's the shank inside, to hold it to the insole and to the heel. We can use the screw to drive in to drive into the heel, to hold the heel. So you have to consider the mechanism to be used. It's very, very key before you start making your insole, okay? You have to consider these key things before you make your insole. And another thing you have to look at is the type of heel you are using. This heel here is different from this heel because I'll be using what is more easier here, that is the screw to drive in this very shank. I have to drive into this very heel rather. I have to consider this is very, very important when making your insole. So the allowances you give to your heel, where you can have your screw driven into it, is also very important. It depends on the heel you are using and the kind of sole you'll be using. If I'm using this very kind of heel, I have to consider the sole I'll be using. What I'll be using is the Nora 3, which is important. That's the kind of sole I chose to use for the project ahead of us. And the heel that I'll be using will determine the kind of material I'll be using to drive into the insole. Okay, it's very, very important. And another thing I didn't mention, which is very key, is the sock. The sock play a very, very vital role in the insole making because you are having, this is a rigid material that might not be comfortable for the wearer. You need something to make it more soft, which would be the sock. The sock comprises of an EVA material or a foam material, or is more of EVA rather, that we'll be using to make it soft. Why are we using the sock? We are using the sock because our insole is having rigid materials. Let's look at this nail. Having contact with your feet, you will not be comfortable. So after you drive this inside, your feet will be having contact with this nail and it will not be soft. So you need the what? The sock in order to what? To help you out. Okay? So these are some of the key things you consider before making your insole. I think I'll just pause here so that our boss, for more bespoke, will just come in and have something to say. Okay? Yes, Mr. Victor, sir, I think you can come in and chip in what you can add in this very session. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, you can chip in, sir. Are you there, sir? Are you there, sir? Yes, sir. Over to you, sir. The floor is open for you, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Shalom. Uh, Thank you very much. I think you're doing an excellent job. So far, I've actually enjoyed the class thoroughly. The question I wanted to ask is I hope you'll be able to show us right here and now how to use that four-legged nail. I'm not sure you're prepared for it. If you are, excellent. If not, maybe you schedule an insert the phone. Sorry about that. A call came into my phone. I'm using my phone. So a call came in and I had to cut off the call. So the point I'm making is if you can show us both how to insert it and how to take it out, we'll be very, very grateful. But other than that, I think you're doing an excellent job so far. Kudos with what you're sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, please.
But for now, since we have not yet made the shoe, we
Yes.
have to consider it's always on the final parts that we
Yes.
have to insert this very insole and the four-edged nail. You
Yes.
use pressure. It's actually pressure that you use to press it in. You can use your hammer in order to insert it, pressure
Mm-hmm.
to push it down into the insole, but you have to consider where the positioning
of the shank.
At the positioning of your shank, so
Yes.
that it can be in between the shank and as well in between the heel.
Mm.
Mostly, the most important we should consider is the length. Okay, the length of the heel. We have to consider that, especially the middle part of the heel. I normally give the measurement of 1.5 centimeter or 2 centimeter away from this very
The
portion,
edge.
from the edge,
Okay.
is very, very important. Because
Mm.
if it's more than 2, it should be, if it's 3, it should be around this edge here. For sure, you know that your heel will not be in the right position.
Mm.
There'll be a very, very big problem. So you have to take your measurement for at least 1.5 centimeter to 2 centimeter. That is the most important um, part you need to consider. And if you
Mm.
are using your screw as well, you have to consider the positioning of your shank so that the screw will not have so that the screw will not have contact with your shank. If
Mm.
it's having contact with the shank, it will not be able to work, which means your screw will just be hanging somehow like this. It will just
Mm.
be hanging and it will not penetrate through your heel. You see, you have a
Mm.
problem. Like for this very one here, I have to consider this opening. This is where my screw is supposed to pass through. This very opening here is very, very, very important. So the measurement I use to measure this here is the length from here to this point.
Yeah.
And from this point now, it's giving me around 2 centimeter, two and a half
Yes.
centimeter, sorry. So that
Yeah.
means my shank positioning now have to consider the
Two
opening
and a half.
of my shank. Yes,
Yeah.
2.5 centimeter.
From the edge of
This,
the insole itself.
yes, this is the shank I'll be
Yes.
using. So now, where will I drive my screw? Is another thing again. Where will I drive my screw? You can see this opening of this shank is what I'll be using to drive in my screw. So I
Yes.
have to consider a passage where this screw will pass and penetrate the through the heel where the screw positioning is. Let
Mm.
me
Mm.
just,
Mm.
as you can see
Okay.
here, so this is what I have to consider when making my heel. And the measurement, if you can see from here now, you discover that my measurement is around 1.5 centimeter
Yeah.
as I shown my shank. Is very,
Yeah.
very important. And
Yes.
another
Yes.
thing I forgot to mention, let me make that very, very, very important point here. In order to make your insole, you must consider the shape, and that shape will determine the height of your heel. If the shank is not bent with the height of the heel, it will cause a very big harm. Your heel will not balance and you'll be uncomfortable using it. I think the first heel I tried, the person that wore it, though it was based on experiment to try it first and see the errors, I was able to discover that the shank was not properly positioned, which make the shoe to be a little bit long, as if I'm making just an easy wear, and it's not positioning properly because of the shank. Is very, very key. If your shank is not properly placed, you have a problem with your insole. I think that is what I have to say for now.
Thank you. Go
I
ahead
think,
with the class. Thank you so much.
all right, sir. So I think I have some comments here. Let me just check through whether we have some questions to deal with that. Okay. Okay, I see a question here. Let me. Okay, this question says, please, how do we get to know a Nora tree that will be durable and not crack? Okay, there is a method I usually use whenever I'm checking Nora tree. Nora tree, just cut a portion of it, a portion of the Nora tree. Once you fold it, you discover that if the Nora is flexible, it will only bend and come back to its original shape. But if the Nora tree is not that good enough, it can end up breaking. It will just create a crack and break. This is one of the way you can check for your Nora tree to be sure whether it's durable or not. That question from Notchcraft. I hope I've made justice to that. Okay. 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 Is the section recorded? Yes, the section is still live here. As far as you have that link, you'll be able to watch later by Charles Okafor. The section is, you will still be on air here. You can just go anytime, you still watch the session from anytime. Okay. I think the class is scheduled to end in 30 minutes time. It's already 30 minutes. Don't know if there's another question again. Okay. Notchcraft. What makes the heel shoe have a back and front movement, even when the screw and shank is properly fixed? Okay, I think this is one of the key things I've been trying to address as well. One major problem is, I think that question, whenever you make it a heel, I made mention of a backer board in the class, in the video. I made mention of a backer board. If you check this, you discover that you are using more fiber board, and this fiber board can be flexible, but the backer board is a material that is more rigid. It's more of like a wood. Okay, it's more of like a wood. It's very, very rigid. I think these are some of the key things that create problem after you make your heel and the insole. So sometimes I advise, if you are not too sure of your fiber board, if you are not too sure, make sure you at least double it. Use double fiber board. It will make it more rigid and it will help curtail that very problem. I hope I've made justice to that question. Let me see the next question. Okay, I see that okay, I'm trying to get this. Wrap your insole in leather when making a shoe and not sandal. It's important to wrap in leather. I'm trying to understand the question, Shoe Academy. I'm trying to understand this question here. I see that wrap your insole in leather while making shoe and not sandal. It is important to wrap in leather. Okay, is it important to wrap in leather? Okay, I think, let me just try to understand this. If you are trying to say either for sandal, you wrap the insole of your sandal and that of the cover, that's when making a high heel shoe. Based on this one, I've not wrapped the edges. I'm trying to get the question. I just hope I'm getting it. Okay. But if it's for sandals, it's very easy. It's very important to wrap the edges. Okay, it depends on the method you adopt. All these go to the method you are adopting in making your insole. Okay, that of sandal, you wrap the edges so that it should not have an opening. That the mind you, the opening here, if you leave your insole open on sandals, water can penetrate and it will easily spoil your insole. But when making shoes, when you don't wrap it, once you last, it's your leather that is covering the insole. Okay, shoe academy. I don't know if I've actually answer your question, because I'm trying to understand your question. Okay, if I've answered your question, you can just leave a comment so that I'll know whether I have made justice to that or not. Okay. Um, okay. Emmanuel Peters. Good evening, all. Just joining. Okay, by my watch. Okay. I hope the session will be accessible after now. Yes, Emmanuel Peters. The session will be accessible after now. As far as you have that link that was shared with you, it said you have it. Notch crafts. I noticed that the heel I get in my local market, the cover of the heel tends to wash out easily or wear out. It depends on the quality of the heel you get. I have one here, as you can see this very one. This one is a heel that you can wrap, a heel that you can just wrap and make use of. So it depends on the quality of heel you get. Okay, it depends on the quality. It's the quality that can tell whether it will wash out easily or wear out easily. The quality of the heel will determine how durable it will be. I hope I've made justice to that. Okay. You have, okay, thank you. And I washer the screw and hold the heel, especially if I use fiber board. Okay. There are components that you can also use, though this is what I developed myself in terms of when I don't have these four-edged nails. I sometimes use what we call the cap for this Coke cap, Coca-Cola cap, or soft drink caps. You can flatten it and use that. It will help. It will go a long way in helping. Okay, Shoe Academy, you can use something like that and drive your nail, depend on what you are using. You can use nails to drive your washer. Okay, as you said, washer or screw, you can use that to hold. But always remember, the most important thing, you are considering the comfort of the person wearing it. That is why I made mention of the sock. Okay, if you are using such, make sure that your sock will be able to protect the wearer's foot. Is very, very important. I hope I've made justice to that, Shoe Academy. In the shank notch crafts, in the shank, is the screw meant to pass through the small hole or the larger hole? Okay, some shank don't have this larger hole here. You have to derive a means of using it. That means this small hole here is actually meant for your rivets. Okay, it's actually meant for your rivets. That's so when making your insole, sometimes you use rivets to hold the insole and the backer board, because the backer board is very rigid. For all these factory made insoles, you discover that there's a rivet holding, you see a rivet on the insole. This small hole here is, this small opening rather, is meant only for those rivets. I won't advise that you use it to hold your screw. Make sure when getting your shank, make sure you have the one that has the larger opening, the larger hole. It will go a long way to um, to protect you and help you from screwing your heel. Very, very important. Okay, Notchcraft. I just hope that the question is answered. Okay, let me check through the next question. If there's no any other question, yes, yeah, that's it. That's just the Shoe Academy. You're welcome. Okay, I think we are fast spent the expected time. Just have it at the back of your mind that whenever you are making a heel, the first thing, let me just review it. The first thing you need to consider is your word, your shank. If your shank is not properly placed on your heel or on your last, you will have a very big problem with your insole. And I said earlier, you should make sure you understand the kind of sole you will be using. Is very, very important. The sole you'll be using is very, very important. The sole you'll be using might have a shank on it, which is already rigid. We have other soles that are made of plastic, and those plastic are rigid enough, so you don't need a shank for your insole. All you need is just prepare your insole without a shank. But if you are dealing with a sole that you'll be constructing, like using the Nora tree, is very, very, very important that you use your shank, because the shank is what make your heel. Okay. Adewale Saludin, which type of adhesive is best for wrapping the heel that will be durable? Okay, I think that's based on my own usage. I normally use the normal adhesive known as the neoprene adhesive. That's a normal air dry adhesive. I use that very adhesive very well to wrap my heel. And it depends on the material you are using. Okay, it depends on the material, but I use the neoprene adhesive very well. Some can use the white adhesive, that's a heat reactivated. You can as well use that very one also. All is just based on your comfort. Okay, based on your comfort. uh okay, Notchcraft, please, must the screw pass through the shank? Okay, I think this leads to another thing that I have to mention. The reason why your screw have to pass through the shank is to hold your shank and the heel. If your screw is not passing through the shank, it will be easier for your insole to break out. Okay, it will be very easy for your insole to break out. The purpose of this four-edged nail and the screw is to hold your shank. Let me just place it in such a way that you understand better. Can you see? Is to hold the shank. This nail here is to hold your shank on the insole. And when it pass through, it penetrates to your heel. That is the purpose. So your screw, our advice, your screw should pass through the shank, because it's also adding more function to it. And also, not just one screw is advisable. You can add two others that will pass through your heel and hold it much better. Okay. Yes, I think our time has been fast spent for today. Okay. I'm asking because I noticed that some people use 4 or 2 screw without a screw in the middle. Okay, it actually work out, but it's very, very important that you should have something at least that will hold it. Okay, notchcraft is very, very important so that I have something holding it from pulling off. 4 screw is good, 3 is good, 2 is good. Like some of the heels I make, like this glass heel, mostly I just use one screw for it. I use one screw mostly, but it's advisable we can add another extra screw for more rigidity and more comfort in as the wearer use it. Okay, so I think that's where we'll wrap it up for today. Just expect the next video on the finishing part of the heel. After that, we'll still discuss more the insole, making the insole of a high heel. I hope you've gotten value from this very class today. And you have more questions, just keep your questions so that we'll discuss more and more. Our time is already fast spent. As you can see, I'm still at work because of the network issue. I have to stay back so that we'll have this very class now. Thank you so much for your time. And the video is still here for you. You can come back anytime and check through if you have something to if you have any challenge, just come back to it and we'll still discuss more in our subsequent class. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you for giving out your own time as well to be part of this very live session. We hope that we'll do more and more. Pardon us for this very class today. It's a little bit a rushy kind, but subsequent classes will make sure we have a good session. Okay, thank you so much for the time. I don't know if my boss have something to say before we wrap it up for the day. Yes, sir.
I've learned a few things also. The part about using the Coke cap to secure the shank, excellent idea. I'm going to try that out. In fact, in my own project, that's the step I'm going to adopt. And notchcraft, the part you were talking about where people use 4 screws and not put anything in the middle. Like Shalom said, you can put stuff in the middle, but then if you find that you are using that shank that doesn't have that long hole in the middle, you can simply deploy. I'm just thinking of it now. You can simply flatten out a Coke screw, put 4 holes around the 4 corners of the Coke screw, and use the middle of the Coke cap to hold down the shank, but then the screws go around the 4 corners. So excellent idea. Is all about your own ingenuity and how you want to deploy it. But thank you very much, Oga Shalom. God bless you. And
Thank you
we'll
so much.
continue the conversation. Yes, we continue the conversation in the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Do have a wonderful night rest.